Welcome to the Menopause Conversations podcast. My name's Angela Council and I am your host for this podcast, and this is where you learn all about menopause, what is happening to your body, to your hormones, and life in general. Everything is changing and sometimes it can seem really confusing, but this is where the confusion stops right now. This podcast will share with you everything you need to know about how you can navigate your menopause transition with ease. So sit back and enjoy the show. Bye for now.
Hello there, it is Angela and I am back for another episode of the Menopause Conversations podcast. It is great to have you here. And this week I've got a special guest. Now, a few weeks ago I got an email from someone and it was talking about this new book that had come out, Beyond Booze. And I was really interested and I looked into it a little bit more and I thought, I need to have the author, Sarah Rusbatch, on our podcast to have a bit of a conversation around this, because alcohol is a big topic and it's also a little bit controversial and can actually push a few buttons, particularly for women as they're coming through this menopause transition. In fact, statistics tell us that women over the age of 45 are the biggest consumers of alcohol in our society. And that's pretty scary stuff. So I wanted to talk a little bit more to Sarah about her book. And I actually got her book and I read it. And I had a few aha moments myself as I went through and read this book. And I share this in the conversation that I have with Sarah today. Because I don't drink and I haven't drunk for the last few years, but I have in the past. And just kind of thinking about my relationship with alcohol, I'm thinking maybe it hasn't been that healthy. But let me just tell you a little bit about Sarah. As I said, she's written a book called Beyond Booze, How to Create a Life That You Love Alcohol-Free. She is a health and wellbeing coach, and she's an accredited what's called a grey area drinking coach. And we'll be talking about what this term grey area means in our conversation. And she does many keynote presentations sharing her journey to sobriety and the impact that alcohol has on mental health to worldwide audiences. She works tirelessly to support women all over the world to create and live their best lives as they age. Sarah admits that she had a dysfunctional relationship with alcohol, and in 2019, she made the decision to remove alcohol from her life completely, and she says she has never looked back from there. Now she works with women across the world who feel lost, stuck, and out of control, something that she really understands, particularly when it comes to that relationship with alcohol, and she helps them live healthier and happier lives. So she also has a thriving global community, the Women's Wellbeing Collective, where she offers a safe space for women to feel seen and understood, and she meets her clients where they're at, and her programs are designed for real life. Sarah equips women with the tools that they need to break that cycle of the unhealthy habits and coping mechanisms that they have around alcohol. Her experience, knowledge, and passion has transformed lives, and I am so delighted to have Sarah here to have this really important conversation. And we're going lots of different directions here. So sit back and enjoy the episode. Bye for now. So awesome. I want to thank you, Sarah, for being part of Menopause Conversations podcast. And today's conversation, we talk a little bit about getting beyond the booze, which is the name of your book. And we're going to talk a little bit about alcohol, its effect it has on us, and probably, I think, some of society's norms and our belief systems around what alcohol really does to us. Now, physically, I can talk about that, but I want to talk about the stuff that you've written in your book. It's like what we think alcohol is there for, or how we use alcohol is probably the biggest question. So welcome to the podcast. And can we just start with this really alarming stat in that women over the age of 45 are the largest consumers of alcohol in Australia and probably most Western countries. And that is a really shocking statistic, isn't it?
It is. And we know that alcohol use in midlife women is the only demographic where the alcohol use is going up and not down. In
Yeah.
every other demographic, people are drinking less. But in midlife women, it's going up. And that's why I wrote the book, Beyond Booze, was to address this. And it's not about pointing fingers, because I'm not anti-alcohol. I'm not here to say, oh my goodness, it's the devil. But I'm a midlife woman. I made the decision to remove alcohol, and everything in my life changed when I did. And that's what I think many of us live with, this myth and this feeling that, oh, but how will I have fun? And a life without alcohol is going to be really boring. And how will I unwind at the end of the day? And actually, that's why I wrote the book, was to talk about all of that and so much more.
Yeah, so let's just start there. Why is it that women in this demographic are using alcohol more and more, basically as a crutch to get them through? What is it? Is it, what is it? Is it just because of what we're marketing? Is it social norms? Is it why are we doing? Why do you think we are using alcohol to kind of get through what's going on in our life? Share some of your story and what you discovered.
Yeah. So there's two reasons that I see that midlife women are using alcohol in very worrying statistics. Andrew Huberman, who's a massive neuroscientist in the US, did a podcast on alcohol, and he shared that alcohol use disorder in women has increased over 84% in the last 30 years. So, which is quite shocking. But there's two reasons, and I've done so much research for my book, but also in the trenches with the women that I work with, because I have a community of over 20,000 women. And one is what we're dealing with in life at this age is, we are more stressed probably than we've ever been. Many of us we're working, we're raising teenagers with all of the stress, or kids anyway, that comes with that. We might have elderly parents that we're looking after. Most of us as women have had role modeled to us that the role of the woman is to do everything for everybody else, right? That was because our mothers did that, because they often didn't work that much.
Yes.
Whereas for our generation, we're working, but we're also carrying that duty and responsibility where, my husband, bless him, he will do what I tell him to do, but it is not in his head to think about, the kids have Scarlett's got that birthday party on Saturday. When I'm at the shop, I must make sure I pick up a present. They don't have the the mental load that is in their heads all the time. So women have just got these incessant to-do lists, midlife women, where they're carrying weight and responsibility of looking after so many others. And then combined with that, we have the marketing of alcohol to women, where big alcohol made a deliberate, conscious decision 30 years ago that they were not making enough money from women. So how are we going to start making more money from women? Because at the moment, all we're doing is selling to men. So they changed their marketing campaign. This is when we started to see more drinks that were being targeted to the palate of women. We had all those alco pops that started coming in to get young girls hooked on alcohol. It's interesting, actually, some of the spirit brands designed those so that they got brand loyalty, so that if you had a hard spirit but there was a cruiser or an alco pop of that same brand, you would be more likely to drink that brand when you got older. So they were trying to get the young teenage girls hooked on their drink to get them drinking more of that moving on. We've then also got, product placement. You watch a TV show, the subliminal messaging that we are getting as women constantly. I'm thinking about every female detective in a police drama that I've ever watched. It shows her coming home from work. She goes straight to the fridge. She opens the fridge. She pours a glass of wine, and then she does this physical, like that is the solution to the stress that I'm feeling. And so you've got those two issues where you've got more stress than ever before and more mental load and to-do lists. And then you've got big alcohol really seeing that as an opportunity to start selling and marketing and advertising their product to women as the solution to that problem. And so then we have, and we've normalized it in society. Like, it's become so normal to go, oh, you're stressed, go home and have a glass of wine. Like, we've normalized everyday drinking. My mother certainly never drank every day. It wasn't something that she used as a crutch to get through life. It was what you did to socialize, right?
That's right.
But whereas I feel like now in social media, in every WhatsApp group that we're in, where you say, oh my God, the kids are driving me nuts, the response is, oh, go and have a glass of wine. And so we've got those two things happening, which is just seen alcohol use disorder in women just skyrocketing.
And then when you say the other thing, because, you know, women who do my program, one of the things is for 10 weeks, no alcohol. And if, you know, and I do put podcasts like this out, then all of a sudden everyone's going, oh, you're the party pooper. Why can't we drink? It's like, it's almost like, and because I listened to that podcast that Andrew Huberman did ages ago, but every time someone makes a statement about that on social media, all of a sudden everyone's just jumping on, you know, it's like, I don't have a problem. But what I'm finding is many women do have a problem. They just don't know they have a problem. And this is what you call this gray area, because we all think that an alcoholic is the guy down the park drinking out of a paper bag. Yet that's not the definition of an alcoholic. You know, it's one picture, but there's women who I know who every night need that glass of wine. But during the daytime they're fine, but every night they have to have one, and then it's two, and then it's three. And this is what you found, didn't you? It's like it was just a little bit, and then that little bit didn't work, and then you had to have a little bit more, and then you had to have a little bit more and a little bit more until it wasn't really filling the hole that you had, the gap that was going on.
Exactly. And that's why we've got to be really careful with that term alcoholic, because it has such a stereotype, right? Where we think of it as being, I mean, my first introduction to someone who was an alcoholic was watching Dallas with Sue Ellen back in the 80s. And she would sit in her like silk nightgown and just lounge around drinking liquor all day and smoking. And she was this mess that was crying and everything was awful. But that's what we have been taught an alcoholic is, and we don't even use that term in the alcohol world anymore. It's not, I am not an alcoholic. I was not an alcoholic. I didn't define myself as an alcoholic. I would define myself as a gray area drinker. And so let me explain what that term really is when we go into it. If we think about someone's drinking as being on a scale of 1 to 10, so 1, someone who doesn't drink or maybe has a glass of champagne at a wedding once a year, and 10 being someone with physical dependency on alcohol. So someone who needs to have withdrawals, very careful withdrawal support to come off alcohol, because alcohol is one of only 3 substances that the human body can die from withdrawal from. So we've got a 1 and a 10. And most people are not a 1 or a 10. Most people are in this grey area, which is probably between a 4 to an 8 on that scale. And this would be mild to moderate alcohol use disorder. So we've not got to the point where we're physically dependent, but we have got to the point where we're probably drinking above the recommended units per week. We can't even contemplate a break from alcohol. Like if someone had said to me, I think you should take 90 days off booze, I think that it would be great for your health, that would have filled me with horror. And that's the first sign that we've probably got a problem with alcohol, because someone who doesn't have a problem with alcohol would be like, yeah, I could do 90 days. Like, it doesn't bother me either way. Whereas when we've started turning to alcohol for something, when it's become our stress reliever, when it's become the thing that we use to delineate between our work day and our evening me time, when it's become the thing that we use to perhaps ease social anxiety when we're socializing, when it's become the thing that we use to numb emotions when we're feeling big emotions like anger or sadness or loneliness or stress or whatever that emotion might be, and we turn to alcohol, when we're in that area, that's grey area drinking. But we are not at the point where we're physically dependent. We don't have to drink every day. I didn't drink every day. I didn't drink in the morning, but I was using alcohol as a crutch for several different things, but the biggest one being stress, because my drinking changed massively after having kids and moving to Australia. I'd been a big social drinker in my teens and 20s, but it was after having kids, moving to Australia, finding myself on the other side of the world with no family support, trying to make new friends, being at home with 2 very young kids. Your life has changed very, very dramatically. And at the same time, you've got this mummy wine culture going on, where big alcohol's constantly selling you this message that alcohol's the solution, alcohol's normal, it's normal and okay to drink wine, you deserve it as a mum, being a mum is hard. And that was when my alcohol use started to increase, but I would never have described myself as an alcoholic. And it's estimated that there are 3 billion people across the world that fit into this category of grey area drinking.
Yeah, and when I was reading your book, because this was very interesting. I don't drink alcohol at the moment. I haven't drunk in 4 years. But then as I read through, I realized that it's likely that I actually do have an issue with alcohol because I'm either on it or I'm off it. And like I stopped drinking when I was 18. It's like, hang on, isn't that when you start? But I used to have a few before that. And then I stopped for 10 years. And then one day I had it's always related to stress. I had a really, really, really bad day at work. And I used to work in a bank, and I walked upstairs and all the guys are up there having a beer. And I said, I'll have one too. Because it was just like, I needed to be like them. Because I was like, I was I was an assistant manager, but everyone else was male. I was the only female. It's like, I need to be part of this. So I went up and I had a drink. And then I started drinking. And it wasn't, I rarely get to the stage where I get drunk because I don't like that feeling. But then it was like every time I went out, and this is what got me, is like, I was planning what I was going to drink before I went out. So I was actually planning it. And then as I got older, and then I kind of stopped drinking for a little bit. And then, like, as I said, it's either on or it's off. And then when I had kids, I was running a busy naturopathic clinic. I'd come home, glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, 3 glasses of wine, and then just to wind down. And I would be coming home thinking about having that glass of wine. And then one day my daughter, at the time she was about 3 or 4, she picks up this glass of wine, an empty wine glass, and said, I'm going to have a drink like mummy. And then for me, I went, hang on a minute, I'm going to stop immediately because I saw what I was doing and didn't drink for many years. Then I started drinking again, and I would kind of go, I'm going out on Saturday night. I'm not going to drink. So before I go out, I'm not going to drink. Until I got there, my husband say, would you like a drink? I say, yeah, I'll have a wine. It wasn't until I read your book that I went, hang on a minute, there's not a good relationship. That type of relationship that I had was not a good relationship. Now, I stopped drinking 4 or 5 years ago because I realized that it was causing a lot of my pain that I was experiencing, and I didn't want to be in pain anymore. So I just went, okay, fine, no more. But there's still times when I go out and I think it would be nice to have a glass of wine, because really just for me, the thing that gets me is that just drinking mineral water seems so boring because everybody else has got a fancy drink on the table. And I don't necessarily want, is this making sense? It's like, this relationship. It's like, you want to be like everybody else because, okay, well, I just have a mineral water because I don't drink soft drink. I just don't drink soft drink at all. And it's like, mineral water is just so boring when everyone else seems to be, and then they're all having a few drinks. And then I feel like, well, I'm not fun anymore because I'm not lubricated like they are. Yeah. And I realized that I would never have said that I had an issue with alcohol, but I don't think I have a healthy relationship with alcohol because it is, for me, it's on or it's off. And at the moment it's off, and that's what it is. But there's a bit of a fear that if I have the first one, then the next night I won't want another one because the bottle's open. Is this what you're talking about, this grey area drinking?
Yeah, and a lot of people say to me, what's the number? Like, what's the number that you need to be drinking to classify as a grey area drinking? And I get it, it's human nature. We want like those hard facts, but it's not a number, it's a feeling. And so when we're noticing that alcohol, is it disrupting our sleep when we drink? Is it causing us to have a bit of anxiety the next day? Is it starting to rob us of energy and showing up as our full, capable, living life to our full potential? Because what I will argue is that I don't believe anyone can live life to their full potential when they're drinking alcohol, because even one glass of wine will massively disrupt your sleep, and no one can show up as their best self when they've had poor sleep. And so grey area drinking, I have some clients who don't drink Monday to Friday and then they binge drink at the weekend, but then they have 5 days off. I have some who have 1 or 2 glasses every night. But it doesn't matter. It's not about a number. It's about, are we using alcohol for something? And the thing, going back to what you said, alcohol is up there with the top 5 most addictive substances in the world. And so it's not our fault if we've developed those neural pathways and those connections in our brain that go, oh, when I'm stressed, I have alcohol and that makes me feel better, because that's what it does to us. Like, that's a fact. And so this is where it really, annoys me and frustrates me. The messaging from the alcohol companies is drink responsibly, drink in moderation, but alcohol's super addictive. And so we're putting the onus on the person, but they're the ones producing this substance that's highly addictive. But we're saying that it's up to the person to be able to drink it responsibly. And so, I believe that messaging needs to change. But, going back to your point about what is grey area drinking. So alcohol use disorder would be classified as 14 units or more per week. That's in a medical sense. Now, 14 units is about 8 home pour glasses of wine a week. That's 2 glasses 4 nights a week. Most people would think that is just like
it's normal,
a healthy, normal relationship with alcohol. Like, the science now that's coming out about the links between alcohol and breast cancer, the science that we know about the links between alcohol and anxiety and depression, that there's more and more information. And all of these, they're not talking about people who are drinking 2 bottles of vodka a day. They're talking about people who are drinking anything above that 14 units or more per week. But I would argue that it's less than that. Like Huberman says, anything above 3 glasses of wine per week, you're increasing your chance of breast cancer.
And it does depend on your genetics too, because yes. I work in genetic health. It's like, because some people can process that alcohol more efficiently than others. And then obviously the age and the stage of life that you're in plays a role too, because as we're coming to menopause, our liver generally is not as healthy as it was when we were children, and it just can't do that job anymore, and we don't have the protection of the hormones.
Absolutely. And that's a really important point, is women, this is why these statistics are so worrying. Women cannot metabolize alcohol in the same way as men. So, this whole era, which was when my drinking vastly accelerated in my early 20s, which, really coincided with the girl power. The girls can match the lads pint for pint down the student union. We had Sex in the City, and Samantha was, drinking her cocktails and having one night stands around the bars of New York, and every woman everywhere was going, hell yes to all of this. We can do this. We can live our life the same. And we were thinking that there was nothing wrong with us drinking the same way that men do. But actually, there really is something wrong with that, because there's a couple of reasons that we need to know this. So number one, a woman's body contains less water. So alcohol dilutes water. So when a man drinks the same amount of alcohol as a woman, more of the alcohol in the man's body is diluted by the water content of their body, whereas for a woman, less of that alcohol is diluted. Secondly, women contain less of the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase, ALDH. This is the enzyme that breaks down alcohol and efficiently gets it out of the body. So women have less of that. And as we age and our liver gets older and older for us women, we produce even less. So this is what's worrying about the midlife women drinking at such a significant level. We cannot metabolize that level of alcohol. So what happens to the alcohol if we can't metabolize it? A higher proportion of it enters the bloodstream, which is what then causes all of the alcohol-related heart disease, cancers, issues with dementia. I've interviewed a dementia expert that has come in and talked to me about the increased link of drinking alcohol and your chances of developing Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's really important that we as women understand it's not about matching the lads pint for pint, because our beautiful body cannot metabolize alcohol in the way that a man's can. And then the third thing is hormones, and which you will be the expert on, is circulating estrogen. When our estrogen is higher, we get more intoxicated, but also alcohol causes our circulating estrogen to increase again, which can then lead to our higher risks of breast cancer from alcohol use.
Yeah, and that, the conversation around HRT. Now, I work with women that don't want to do HRT, but there's this big push. Women should be taking HRT. They should be taking HRT, and then the other side says yes, but it increases your risk of breast cancer. But no one's kind of turning around and saying, well, hang on a minute. The glass of wine that you're having every night is actually increasing your risk of breast cancer more than if you took HRT, and then women are then taking HRT and the wine on top. So now we've increased their risk even more. So it's like, we've really got to start looking at this differently and realizing, as you say, that as women, particularly as middle-aged women, that we are at a higher risk for these different health conditions, and alcohol plays a role in that, plays a big role in that.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I've interviewed many menopause experts over the years who've shared they don't, all of those health scares about HRT and breast cancer from, was it the 1990s or something, or the 80s, where that information came out, and how much of that has actually been like really, really kind of, said that's not actually the case. But what many women are never told when they go on HRT is your risk of breast cancer from HRT is very low. But if you add alcohol and you're on HRT, that massively increases your risk of breast cancer. Not a single woman is told that. I am in Facebook groups with hundreds of thousands of women, and none of them are aware of this information. That is duty of care in my mind.
Yes.
That is duty of care of medical healthcare professionals to share this information with women.
I totally agree, because a lot of women are taking HRT because they think that means they don't have to do their lifestyle and the diet stuff. They do HRT because it just gets to fix the so-called the symptoms, but they're not actually, they're not getting the full picture that they still have to do the rest of the work. And part of that is you need to be looking at your alcohol intake. And particularly, if your alcohol intake is significant, which for many women, as we know, is, then they get, if they do happen to get breast cancer, then it gets blamed on the hormones, not on the alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll tell you, I don't know if you saw last week that the Lancet came out with a new report on breast cancer.
Yes.
So the Lancet being, the medical journal, for any of your listeners that haven't heard of it, one of probably the most respected medical journal in the world. And they have a new breast cancer commission, and they have predicted by 2040 that we will be diagnosing 3 million women a year with breast cancer. And they are they're saying it's not inevitable. If things stay as they are, that's the predictions. But we could intervene now and make changes. And here's what's huge in the alcohol-free world is that the Lancet have come out and said, we are calling for policy makers, meaning the governments, to commercially ban to ban the commercial marketing of products linked to causing breast cancer, such as alcohol. And they've listed, so they have said, we think that there should be commercial marketing, should be banned of alcohol because of the link to breast cancer.
Yep. And look, we did it with smoking. We did it with cigarettes. You can still smoke, but you've got to look at number one, it's all plain packaging here in Australia, or you've got to look at these disgusting photos on your cigarettes or whatever. We don't have any of those type of warnings on a bottle of wine.
No, and we're constantly, I did some research into something that Cancer Council WA did, which was a paper on the Instagrammability of pink drinks and the rise in pink drinks towards women and how great they look on Instagram and the photos and all of that stuff. We're coming up to Mother's Day in Australia as we record this. And I just asked your listeners to start noticing what they see with regards to Mother's Day, because already on Friday, I have been sent images of a very, very famous national store that sells nightwear and pajamas.
I know which one you're talking about.
Pajamas covered in wine glasses. Mum needs wine, wine down time, all of this. Like those little girls are going to buy presents for their mum, and all they're doing is picking up this message that mum needs wine to be able to relax. You can't, mum's reward for being a mum is to have wine. Alcohol. But let's remember, alcohol is a level 1 carcinogen. It's not pink bubbles of tastes of butterflies and blueberries and all the bullshit that they put on these labels. It is a level 1 carcinogen. And we've got to remember that. And I think somewhere along the way, the alcohol companies are working so bloody hard to skew that information about how damaging and toxic and addictive alcohol is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money in alcohol, obviously. The government also makes money out of its taxes. But just lost my train of thought and I haven't even had a drink today.
There's menopause.
I know. So this drinking to numb emotions, let's talk about that a little bit. How, it's we live in a stressful world. We do live in a stressful world, but sometimes, women are picking up a glass of wine because they're not ready, then they don't want to face what's really going on. It's easier to have that glass of wine than to say, hang on, maybe I need to be having a conversation with my husband. Maybe I need to be talking about my job. Maybe I need to be just getting outside and, doing a little bit more for me. The me time is I'm having a glass of wine rather than, doing something which is probably more beneficial for their health.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was me. Like, I used alcohol to numb every uncomfortable emotion, because I can clear as day, Angela, remember my parents having an argument when I would have been about 9 or 10 years old, and my dad storming to the drinks cabinet, pouring himself a whiskey. And what do we do as kids? We monkey see, monkey do. What's the first thing that we then think of? There are statistics that show that daughters of mothers with alcohol use disorder are 7 times more likely to develop alcohol use disorder themselves, because that's what's been modeled to them as well. So it's, again, it's thinking about that role model. But coming back to these emotions, that was what was modeled to me. So from a very young age, I worked out that alcohol was a great way to not feel uncomfortable feelings. So that continued for a long period of my life. And then at the age of 43, I removed alcohol. So I had to suddenly learn how to sit with feelings and how to sit with emotions. And they say in the alcohol-free world, when we remove alcohol, we resort back to having the emotional age that we were when we started drinking. And for me, that was 14. So it was almost like I had to start to learn how to deal with life. Because if we've been using alcohol, we've got no resilience. We've got no resilience because all we've been doing is avoiding dealing with what the root cause of the issue is. And so many of the women I work with, they are doing exactly as you say. They're unhappy in their marriage, and so they drink because they don't want to have to face what it might look like to confront this and make decisions about it. They're in a job that they hate, but they can't see a way out, and so they drink. But what they don't realize is that by drinking, they're making themselves more anxious, losing that confidence, no mental clarity, no ability to actually make a decision on what to do moving forward. And so the toolkit I provide, and I've now supported thousands of women to change their relationship with alcohol, is about how, first of all, let's get you off the booze and just take a break. We don't have to say, but then let's start working out, what's the emotion I'm feeling right now, and what do I need to do to manage that emotion? Because different emotions need different things. And so it causes us to create this real deep level of self-connection and self-awareness that we don't have when we're drinking, because all we're doing is just numbing, distracting, avoiding. The moment something hard is happening, we're reaching for a drink. So we don't know what we need in any given moment. And the beauty of removing alcohol is that we really get to know ourselves, and we can sit there and be like, okay, this is happening right now. This is hard. What am I going to do to support myself through it? And remembering it will pass, because everything does.
So then what is your thought around these non-alcoholic wines? Do people just substitute one thing in a glass for another, and they're still not addressing the what's going on emotionally, but they're just not getting the hit from alcohol? Or do you think it's a good bridge to get you from one place to another?
It really depends on the individual. I find that the more dependent someone is on alcohol, the more unhealthy their relationship tends to be with alcohol-free drinks. So they will really, really lean on them. But I know many women, and I've coached thousands of women, for whom using alcohol-free drinks is what's got them sober, because it was the kind of the stepping stone. Because we've got to remember that an alcohol-free drink, it tastes like the thing, but it's not doing like physiologically what alcohol is doing. So it's not numbing you. It doesn't give you that big surge of GABA that means that you just switch off and you start to relax. It doesn't give you the big dopamine hit. It's just the drink that, like I always say, keep the ritual, change the ingredient. So if you normally pour a drink at 5 o'clock, go and pour a beautiful drink, but just it's not alcohol. And for lots and lots of ladies, that really works. So it just depends on the individual, but I've had hugely positive results. And I find that women find that they perhaps lean on them quite a lot at the start, but as time goes by, they find, oh, actually, I don't really want to have that drink. I don't need it. And they might just have an alcohol-free champagne every now and then, but they just stop leaning on them as much. I certainly have found that, and I very rarely drink them now just because I'm very aware of my sugar content and don't want to have that sugar. But you can get sugar-free. There's lots of good options out there.
Yeah, because I used to drink a few of those alcohol-free ones, and yeah, it was like, yeah, okay, so I can drink this, but I tend to drink more of it because it has no alcohol in it, but there's a hell of a lot more sugar in it.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
and then you have the women say, well, it doesn't taste the same, but it's not necessarily that it doesn't taste the same, because a lot of these wines are made in the exact same wineries as make the alcohol one. They just remove it. As you say, it's not the taste, they're not getting the hit anymore, is it? It's like they're not getting that hit that they were getting with the alcohol. The taste is virtually the same.
Well, I would say that alcohol has got a very when you add out the alcohol content, for example, of wine, would make that wine taste more dry. So when you take the alcohol out, it might have the same amount of sugar as the alcoholic version, but it will often taste a lot sweeter because of the alcohol being removed. And so the biggest thing that you hear is people going, oh, they're so sweet, the alcohol-free wines. But I've definitely found a few now that are really good and they still taste very dry.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to drink the non-alcoholic ciders if I ever do. I mean, these days I don't, because I don't socialise that much. I live in the country and don't see too many people. So how do people share with the women who are listening basically what you do and how they can find out more about what you do, and a little bit more about your book that you have out, Beyond Booze?
Yeah, so I wrote this book because having coached thousands of women, and majority of the women I work with are aged between 40 and 65, and they've reached a point. So some of the signs that you might be ready to change your relationship with alcohol. When you're drinking, it's affecting your sleep. So you're really noticing that when you drink, you're waking up at that 2 or 3 in the morning, you're struggling to get back to sleep. Finally get back to sleep, wake up, be like, I'm definitely not drinking tonight. I'm not drinking tonight. I'm going to have a clean week now. And then by 5 o'clock, subconsciously, you're just going to the fridge. So, those are some of the signs. We're making rules around our drinking. So I often had rules. I don't drink on a Monday and Tuesday. I don't drink before 5 o'clock. I don't drink white wine on an empty stomach. But then I would often find a reason to justify breaking my rules. So that meant that there was a lot of mental chatter around alcohol. There was a lot of negotiation going on in my brain quite a lot of the time. Was I or was I not allowed to have alcohol that night? And it took up a lot of headspace. I noticed that my anxiety was really increasing the next day. And there's a physiological reason for this. When we drink alcohol, it causes us to release more of the stress hormone cortisol. So we actually make ourselves more stressed and anxious by drinking, which is the irony, because most people are using alcohol to relax. So if we're noticing that this is what's happening, then it potentially is time to take a break. So I wrote this book because there's a lot of great books out there that talk about how to physically take a break from alcohol. So here's how to remove alcohol from your life. But what I realized was there's no books aimed at women talking about the root cause of why we're drinking and what we can change in our lives so that we don't need or want to drink anymore. Because it's not about removing alcohol and then living your life exactly as you were before, because if you try and do that, you're just going to go back to drinking. It's actually about, if I want to, for my health, for being aware of the role modeling that I'm doing for my kids, for all of those reasons, I want to take a sustained break from alcohol. What do I need to change to make this easier? So my book is all about what to add in when we take alcohol out. So I've got chapters there on socializing, because we still want to have a social life. We still want to have fun, but it might, and I've got a chapter specifically about what do you do for fun when you quit drinking. And so it's all about recognizing fun is anything you do for your own enjoyment and pleasure. Fun is not only getting dressed up, going to a bar or someone's house and getting pissed. That might be what we did for fun in our 20s, but as midlife women now, we are allowed to change and grow and evolve, but most of us have just kept doing what we did in our 20s, and then it doesn't work anymore. So it's really identifying what that fun is. There's a whole section in my book about relationships, because what I find is for many of my midlife women, they've been with their partners for 20, 30, 40 years, and they've always been big drinking partners. And then if one of you removes alcohol and the other one carries drinking, it can drive a big divide in the relationship. And we talk about sober sex because, like, for some of my women, that's how they use alcohol to relax them for intimacy in their relationship. So there's lots in there. It's a practical midlife woman's guide for everything about taking a break from alcohol. So the tagline for the book is how to create a life you love, alcohol-free, beyond booze. So I recommend for any of your listeners, even if you're sober curious and you might not be ready to take a break, but just pick up the book because there's so many tools in there. And I've had a lot of feedback from women saying, this isn't just a book for about alcohol. This is a guide for midlife women about how to find your purpose, how to really plan and think about your future and what you want for yourself, because so many of us have just been living on this treadmill of working and doing everything for everybody else, and we're exhausted and we're knackered and we're not taking any time for ourselves. And there's a lot in there about this area. And finally, I find as well the next level of women that seem to be very interested in the book is the empty nesters. So women for whom, their whole life has been focused on, they've been busy and they've been working and raising kids and everything else. And then all of a sudden they might be approaching retirement and the kids have left home. And then they've got this time and this space and they realize that maybe they've let some of their friendships go and they feel very lonely and they're bored. Like, boredom is a massive reason that so many of my women are drinking. The three biggest reasons being boredom, stress, and loneliness. And I address all of those in the book. So that would be a great place to start. And then what I do is I run alcohol-free programs, 30-day programs. I call them a challenge. It's a 30-day challenge to challenge yourself to take 30 days off, come into my community. I hold your hand through that 30 days. You get me, access to me constantly, providing you with tools and tips and strategies and live talks and podcast episodes to really support you. And if anyone says, oh, I can't do 30 days, then you need to do 30 days. Like, if the first response is I can't do 30 days off alcohol, then we need to talk, right? Because what I do is I really help people to change their beliefs, because for so many of us, we've just got this old story that we've been telling ourselves that alcohol's a reward. Alcohol is something that we need to celebrate. But in actual fact, there are so many other rewards that are healthier and more nourishing for our beautiful body as we age. And we've got to start thinking about, well, the 80-year-old version of me, everything we do now, every decision we make now about how we live our life, our lifestyle, the food that we eat, whether we consume alcohol or not, all of those will impact the version of her that we get to become. And it's really kind of starting to think about and visualize, who is that version of you at 80? What do you want her to do? I want to be traveling the world at 80. I want to still be doing all of that, right?
I still want to have my backpack on, hiking around the world.
Yeah.
But what I love about what you just said then, it's like, it's not just, we have these, Feb fast and July, whatever, sober Julys or whatever, where people just stop for a certain amount of time. You're giving them something to replace it with. It's like, it's not just don't drink alcohol. It's like, understand why you drink alcohol. What are the coping mechanisms? What tools are there so that when you get to the end of the 30 days, that you're not sitting there, waiting to have that first drink, which is what happens for many people who kind of do these, whatever they are, Feb fast and all sober Julys and all the dry July, that's what it's called. And they booze out like the day, like the 30th of June, and they sit there holding out for the 1st of August and then just have another booze out.
Yeah, but if we do that, all we're doing is reinforcing our story. A life without alcohol is crap. A life without alcohol is boring. I've just got to cross off the days. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to moan about it. And then I'm going to go and reward myself with getting as pissed as possible. Whereas my approach is, let's look at what we're gaining when we remove alcohol. How's your sleep? How's your energy? How's your anxiety? Because the changes that people notice, the biggest changes that I've noticed is my sleep is incredible. I get 8 hours solid sleep a night. I've got zero anxiety now. And I was at the point where I was sobbing on my GP's floor, riddled with anxiety when I was at the thick of my drinking. And at no point did she say to me, how much are you drinking? But happily gave me a prescription for anti-anxiety meds. Whereas I find for so many of my women, the moment they take that decision to remove alcohol, their anxiety massively drops. They're calmer, with their kids, with their partners, at work. They start to get mental clarity. Their confidence grows. Their energy grows. They develop different relationships with their kids. Like so many things. So if we
The hot
focus on
flushes go. The hot flushes go. The mini bellow disappears.
They lose weight. Their skin clears. I feel like I'm aging backwards. I'm 48 now, and I look better than I did at 38 and 28. Right? Because when you're not consuming what is a toxin to the body, it's incredible what you're capable of mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah, I know for me personally, just stopping the alcohol, because I was in unbelievable pain. So joint and body pain is a very common symptom for women as they go through menopause. I stopped, and within days the pain disappeared. It just disappeared because my body was no longer being inflamed on. And even then, I was only drinking on a Saturday night, not every other night, but my body wasn't constantly being inflamed by the alcohol, by the toxin that was in my body. And then it had a chance to heal. But each week when I go, well, I'm only going to drink on Saturday, I wasn't giving it enough time to actually heal. I was just giving it enough time to kind of just get ready, and then I would put more alcohol in on top. And then there was one day I'm going, I just can't. It was actually about 2 weeks before Christmas at a Christmas party, and I went, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm sick of being in pain, because one of the things I love to do is to hike. And when I'm in pain, I can't hike. That's like, okay, I just stopped. And I've had one glass of champagne in 5 years, and that was at the end of a 4-day hike, and they gave us a glass of champagne as we came back into camp, and I did not sleep that night. And with the amount of, and it wasn't the pain from the walk, it was because I was a little bit sore after every day walking, but it was a different type of pain, and it didn't matter. Magnesium, painkillers, whatever I took, didn't matter. I could not sleep that night because I'd had one glass of champagne.
And it's a toxin.
It is.
But it's just dressed up in pretty bottles and I feel like we have just been we've just been brainwashed and treated like idiots by big alcohol, who've just created these beautiful packages of this, these products to make us think that it's adding to our life. But actually, when you see it for what it is and what it does to our beautiful bodies, it's like, actually, have I got this all wrong?
Because every time, what's the easiest thing if you go to someone's birthday party and you don't know what to buy them? You get them a bottle of booze, champagne, red wine, whatever. Or you go to some place and you in a raffle and you win a prize and it's alcohol. It's like everything. And because I kind of look at it and go, oh, you can just redraw that, thanks. I don't drink.
I know. It's just astonishing. It was funny, not that long ago, Angela, I was manager for my daughter's netball team, and at the end, they have the prize giving presentations for the team and everything, and they got me up on stage to say thank you and gifted me a bottle of wine, and my friend was just in the audience going, don't they know what she does for a job? Oh my God.
And it's just it's easy. People don't think about it, and it's just accepted. I'll just give someone a bottle of wine, and it's like, that's just the way it is. And if you don't drink, no one's asking you, would you like a bottle of wine? They're just going, here's a bottle of wine. And so now you've got this bottle and you think, well, what am I going to do with it? And because I then don't want to gift it to someone else because I think I didn't want it. I don't want to give it to someone else. So I have all this wine sitting there that doesn't do anything. Yeah. We shipped up 12 bottles of wine or 12 boxes of wine that just sits there. And including like all this moe that I was given for my 50th. Like the moe was given to my 50th. Hasn't been drunk and it's just sitting there. Now it's probably off. I probably should just open it and throw it away. But there's a part of me that says, oh, but that might be worth something. I don't want to throw it away. Yeah. But I don't want to drink it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's astonishing, isn't it? And like I said, just start looking out for Mother's Day, because everywhere and trying to find a Mother's Day card that doesn't, reference alcohol in some way. It's just everywhere.
Well, where can people find your book, and where can they find more out about you?
So my book, Beyond Booze, is available in all big department stores. It's in Big W, Kmart, Target, it's in Dimmocks, it's on Amazon, it's on Booktopia. So you can have a look for that anywhere. And then the best place to find me is, I'm very present on Instagram. So just my name, Sarah Rusbatch. My website is sarahRusbatch.com. And then I have a free Facebook community called the Women's Wellbeing Collective. And that's got tons of information and free resources in there as well.
Thanks. I'll make sure that all goes in the show notes for everybody, and I might come over and join that Facebook group over there and check out what you're doing. But yeah, that's a good place for people to start, like to get to know what you do. And then, yeah, as you say, there's resources over there so they can go over there and be with other women who are on this journey, and wherever you are on the journey, if you're at the beginning or you've been further down the track, it's good to find other women who are supporting you and giving you, kind of giving you a little bit of encouragement, saying, hey, you can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for joining me. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, it's Angela, and I'm back again. What did you think of that conversation with Sarah? Very, very interesting, wasn't it? Some of the things that she has to say, particularly around grey area drinking, our thoughts and our beliefs around alcohol, how we use alcohol quite often to fill gaps in our life or to manage our stress, so to say. But if you want to find out more about the work that Sarah does, I put all of her links in the show notes so you can get them, and Sarah did share them at the end of that conversation that we had. Now, please feel free to share this episode with any of your friends, any women you think might benefit from maybe having a look at their alcohol relationship, or just to learn a little bit more. We can always, we can never learn too much, I think. So feel free to share it. If you did enjoy this episode, please give us a rating and review, whether or not that's on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that you're listening. Please give us a bit of a rating and review and let us know what you think. And don't forget that we do have a Facebook group, Menopause Conversations Facebook group, where we can continue this conversation and, come over there, ask questions and let us know what you thought of the podcast. So that's it from me. I'll be back next week with another episode of Menopause Conversations podcast. Bye for now.